All right. How's everybody doing this evening? I haven't been in a church before talking, but this is going to be a lot of fun. It's great to see everybody. My name is Mason Ailstock. I'm the president, chief executive for the Rowen Foundation, and it really is a pleasure to have y'all here this evening. And those of us online, I know we have a lot of folks joining us via Zoom to be a part of a community conversation. Rowen it's a new project. I think we're about 6 months in from our launch date, and it's a project that's about people. It's a project that's about creating a place, and it's a project that's about imagining the future. So you all being here with us today at this very early stage in the process could not be more important, more appreciated, in really guiding our work. We're at the early stages where there's not a master plan. We want to have the insights and the input from the community. So with that, I'm going to offer a few remarks just to get us started. We're beginning what may be one of the most important steps in imagining Rowen, and that's the public engagement. Today we come together for the second of our initial public meetings, where we are asking our neighbors and other members of the community to think deeply about this project on several levels and to generate ideas and feedback. Now, most projects will share renderings and plans and ask you to react to them, but that's not going to be the approach for Rowen, really for two reasons. First, this is more than a real estate project. It's an opportunity for us to create equity and an opportunity for our community while advancing it economically. Second, we don't just want your input. We want your imagination. And we want it before we begin making detailed design decisions. So today we're going to take about 20 minutes of time to level set all of you on the vision of Rowen, how we are structured, the opportunity before us, and some additional details. For those of you joining us virtually, everyone but the presenter, that'll be me for the presentation, will be muted during this session. For those of you here in person, feel free to take notes on the cards that we've provided. Then we will separate out into breakout groups based on the interests that you indicated, either collaboration, authenticity, inspiration, or affordability and access. You all will have the opportunity there to share your ideas, inspirations for Rowen that we need to take down, and ask questions, any questions that you like. We will have a designated note taker in each breakout room, whether you are here in person or joining us virtually. And we're using all of these notes to guide our plans for Rowen moving forward. You'll be able to find previous meeting notes that are posted on our website, and we'll also publish today's notes there as well for you to be able to go back and see. If you did not indicate an interest, you'll be randomly assigned to a breakout room if you're joining us virtually, and you can choose one in person when we head into our breakout group together. If you want to join more breakouts than the one you have signed up for today, particularly for those joining us virtually, we'll offer similar opportunities at our next meeting. If you prefer to offer your ideas later or ask questions privately, we will have a post-event email that's sent out that you can respond to with a feedback form. And of course, you're always welcome to send us your thoughts and feedback via our website, rowenlife.com. So with that, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome a friend and someone that I've just enjoyed getting to know since we launched Rowen, Commissioner Marlene Foscue, to offer some thoughts, some welcome remarks. So thank you so much, Commissioner Foscue.
Well, good evening. I am so proud to live in this county, and I am so proud to live in this community. In fact, C3 Church is also a county voting precinct, and they offer I'm doing a plug here, they offer a power-packed, heartfelt, in-person worship. They are in-person worship experience. So to the C3 Church family, thank you for opening up this awesome facility and allowing us to discuss Rowen tonight. So thank you. Here we go. Hands down, Rowen is one of the most exciting and forward-thinking economic development projects happening today. We have a great team which you will meet here tonight to share the nuts and bolts of the project and to engage you in a meaningful conversation and an interactive group discussions. While I have the floor, I would like to say a few words about what I think this development means for Gwinnett County for our future and for our children's future. You see, this project isn't a 5-year project. This is at least a 50-year project by the time it's built out fully. As you may already know, Rowen is nearly 2,000 acres. It's a knowledge community. It's along State Route 316, just east of Decatur. Now, this will include a combination of office, research, facilities, public spaces, and residents. The seeds for Rowen was planted back in 2013 when commissioners who were serving at that time began thinking about the potential of a project just like this and what it would mean for Gwinnett. It would mean jobs, opportunities, environmental conservation, and high-quality development that focuses on targeted industries. After my election to the Board of Commissioners in 2018, I was quickly brought into the process along with Commissioner Koo, and I'm thrilled to see this vision come to life. Our first priority is to gather input, which is what we're doing, before we start developing anything, and that's why we're here tonight. Rowen offers incredible research opportunities for the future. It provides space for universities, colleges, and great minds of Georgia just come together to connect. Right here in Gwinnett to develop the next generation of technology and innovation. The focus is basically on what I call MEI. Now, they call it something else, but I call it MEI. Medicine, agriculture, and then the environment, which will create new employment and career opportunities. One of the main points I really find so special about this development is their pledge to preserve green spaces in the beauty of our natural landscape. So when we think about what Rowen means down the line, it is so much greater than what one county can ever do. Rowen is about impacting the lives in many ways in many places. It will indeed be a multi-generational impact on Gwinnett County, on our region, on our state. I have a 2-year-old granddaughter, and I feel like one day she'll go to college, she'll come back home, that's my prayer, and she'll end up working somewhere in the Rowen community. Now the scene has been set, so my challenge to you today is to take an active role, to get involved, to share some of your concerns, and tell us what you think. In other words, we're listening first, with a commitment to a truly inclusive process that involves input from the residents, the business leaders, educators, elected officials like myself, and others. We look forward to hearing from you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Foscue. So with that, let's jump into a few slides to get everybody informed. We have our website that shares a good bit of information. We've got a great video on there. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out, give a few more insights. But let's jump into the slides, and we're going to walk through just some of the details, right, that help to answer a lot of the questions that we've heard and hopefully feed into our breakouts afterwards. So we'll go to the next slide. So Rowen Foundation itself is an independent nonprofit that's mission-driven, and we're dedicated to helping Rowen achieve its vision. That's our role. Having that as a best practice in places like Research Triangle Park and others that lead with an independence but an accountability that we'll talk more about here in just a second. And our mission statement's clear: to be a catalyst for education, research, innovation, and transformation through the creation of a global destination which recognizes the stewardship of the land as the cornerstone of an inspired community. Let's go to the next slide. And the foundation, as I said, is a best practice as an independent nonprofit. It keeps us in a flexible position. It allows us to respond to market opportunities, to changes in technology, but it's also accountable to the community. This event right here is not a one-time thing. Our accountability to the public, how we serve and steward our mission, is an ongoing process and an ongoing conversation. And there's transparency. As a nonprofit, we have reporting on our financials, how we operate, how we're governed, in a way that ensures that our mission is always aligned and fulfilled through the work that we're doing in Rowen. Go to the next slide. And our vision statement, it's bold. It's about bringing together universities, colleges, industry into a collaborative environment. As Commissioner Foscue said, it's about embracing the natural beauty that Rowen has the privilege of having as a part of its environment. How do we think strategically and intentionally about creating spaces for everyone from the community to be able to enjoy it? It's about creating an entrepreneurial spirit in a place that's about humanity. Yes, there's going to be jobs. Yes, there's going to be economic impact. But at the end, this is about people. It's about moms and dads and families that come together as professionals, but also as places to spend time together and to imagine and create a future together. And it's a place, again, about stewardship. That's a word that's always been close to my heart, that we are stewards of our resources, that we're stewards of land, we're stewards of our profession in the work that we do and we have the privilege to do every day. And that's very much how we view the role of the foundation itself. And we're a place where we want to ignite transformation, we want to ignite inspiration in people through the work that we do. We want to attract the type of companies and partnerships with universities and colleges that share that desire to create a meaningful work environment, that create a place that people are excited to be a part of and feel like they have something that they're able to contribute. And then finally, it's a place that does have a physical environment. There's research facilities, there's startup space, there's places for food and programming and music to come and gather. We'll go to the next slide. And it's a community concept that, we try to break big ideas down into simple forms, and this is something that our team has created and wanting to show what is a knowledge community. And really, it's a place that on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see universities, colleges, labs, other nonprofits, and R&D institutions coming together with private companies and startups, entrepreneurs and investors, and sharing the opportunity to connect research and innovation partnerships, exchanging of ideas, a flow of a diverse talent. It's not all about PhDs. So many of these jobs in the innovation economy don't require a higher level degree. They require an associate's degree or even a high school degree to be a part of it. And we want to create an economic engine that allows for that type of access and opportunity for all members of the community around the talent pipeline. And it's about access to space and equipment. There'll be space and equipment that's, of course, there for industry partners that are locating, but also highly accessible equipment that may cost more money, and we're able to, through our nonprofit mission, provide that so that startups have access to it to continue to grow and prosper. And then within the knowledge community, we have a number of expectations as far as what the product is going to be, what the outcomes are going to be, but just a few of them that are important in my mind. The growth of economic opportunity that, again, transcends the economy. Enhanced community access, not just about the workers and the folks that will live and work in Rowen, but also all of Gwinnett, all of Georgia, a place to come and experience. And a place that creates solutions both locally and globally. We want to be a place that's known for coming up with answers, that's known for being a place where people go when they have an idea or an inspiration or a company that helps to make our collective future healthier, more productive, more meaningful. Then we want Rowen to be the place that they think of and that they identify with that vision and purpose. We'll go to the next slide. This is the location of Rowen. We'll talk a little bit more about the property, but you see to the east, to the right side of the slide, the Appalachian River that goes into Barrow County, so in Eastern Gwinnett, and then University Parkway 316 there at the bottom of the slide, and Highway 8, Widener Highway to the north. So along 316, we have around 3 to 4 miles on both sides of frontage, property on both sides of 316, and then around 3 miles along the river, where we see a great opportunity as well to connect regionally to a trail system, to a park system, and again, how do we think as wise stewards for the land itself? Let's go to the next slide. Geographically throughout the region, you can see Rowen is about equidistant between Athens, Atlanta, and Gainesville. The next slide. And with the recognition that our role in connecting universities and colleges, higher education, and wanting to be a catalyst and a convener for those leaders, for those thought leaders, those folks that are at the front edge of their practice, we want to understand the work that they're doing. How can we help support them? How can we help lift up the great work that they're doing? So we'll go to the next slide. But that's inclusive of colleges. And I would even throw up public education, or public schools here. It's really the full spectrum from kindergarten all the way up through PhD. How can Rowen serve as a catalyst, a convener, an advocate, a supporter throughout education, which ultimately leads to economic development and opportunity? Go to the next slide. We also looked at medical institutions. That's such an important part of our economy, such an important part of our community. How can we connect and be a resource to medical institutions as well throughout the region? Next slide. And we looked at transportation infrastructure, both existing infrastructure that's in place, but what does the future hold? What do we need to have to make this a truly accessible and affordable place to attract companies and attract workers and other leaders from throughout the region? So we're thinking about, future plans like the Sugarloaf connector and, other solutions around transit, multimodal solutions that Rowen can help be a part of for a solution. Can go to the next slide. And we looked at innovation assets that are throughout the region. The water tower at Gwinnett, the Innovation Center in downtown Lawrenceville and beyond in the region. There's so many other places where people have invested their resources and intellect that Rowen, we want to connect to and be a compounding partner with. That it's not about competition regionally. It's about finding out how do we create a diverse economic system for Georgia, for Gwinnett, throughout the region that is complementary and really positions us to be successful on a global stage. Next slide. And Rowen itself sits in a vibrant economy already, a $405 billion GDP in the Atlanta, Athens, and Gainesville MSA. That's tremendous. That economic power right there in and of itself just shows, that in my mind, it's almost wrong to not push into innovative ideas and ways that we can build a community like Rowen. 50 higher education institutions generating around 75,000 graduates every year. I mean, that's a tremendous, diverse talent pipeline that we're able to curate, to provide access and pathways for industry that's coming to the region. 26 future Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 companies that we can partner with and work together. And also the artistic, athletic, and cultural hub of the Southeast. And that's equally important. This is not all about research and innovation. It's about life. It's about creating and inspiring people through the work that they do in the place that they call home. So Rowen at full build out will have a little over 2,000 acres. We project around 22 million square feet, and it's the only mega site in the 5-county metro region. All of those numbers considered, to Commissioner Foskew's point, this is a long-term, multi-generational project. I view myself as in being a part of the foundation and the privilege of being able to help lead our group as someone where we are a steward of an idea in a place that is really about our children and our grandchildren. And that's the type of investment and strategy that we have at our core as we think about how we move Rowen forward. Go to the next slide. We also think about scale, right? This is helpful context for those of us that are more spatially oriented. I certainly am. So we overlaid the scale of Rowen on Midtown, and you can see to the right there, Piedmont Park, and then all the way over to the left, past the Georgia Tech campus. And I think the only thing we found that was a bit bigger, we didn't quite fully cover, is the Hartsfield Airport. And that's just by a little bit. So nearly 4 miles from top to bottom, north to south for the Rowen property. Next slide. But and Rowen is not a new idea. It's authentic and it's gonna reflect the qualities of Georgia, the qualities of Gwinnett, but it's a tested concept of building an economic engine that is rooted in innovation, education, and research. Places like Kendall Square in Boston, Research Triangle Park in North Carolina, Mission Bay in San Francisco in California, and Cortex in St. Louis. All of them have lessons learned, both good and bad, that we can learn from and help to inform how we move Rowen forward in a very intentional way. Next slide. And we're driven by programmatic drivers. We have a focus around how do we engage with universities, colleges, companies, and the rest of the community. And those are guided by medicine, agriculture, and the environment. And those are very expansive ideas, between logistics all the way to robotics and engineering as a focus for the work that we can do. And how do we connect convergent industries through our work at Rowen that focus on these 3 programmatic drivers. And next slide. And finally, the economic impacts. Again, we look 15 years out, so that's around 2035 or so. The construction costs, so this is development on the site, of $1.1 billion. Ongoing jobs that we project being supported, 18,500, and the ongoing labor income of $1.6 billion. And then you can see a 50% projection that we have for build out at 2050, 55,500 jobs, and nearly $5 billion in ongoing labor income. And these numbers are quite large, and there's something for us to take note of. But for me, what I see here, again, are people doing meaningful work and connecting, and the revenue, the economic impact that we're creating is not retained inside a 2,000-acre piece of real estate. It's creating an economic engine that's reinvesting back into our community assets that build a healthier, more accessible, more equitable environment for people to call home. So those are the slides. Hopefully that's a helpful kind of download on at least where we've come from, where we are, and inform your thinking as we move forward into the breakout sessions. Our friends online joining us virtually are going to be divided up into the groups that you signed up for, and you will again have a moderator there. You'll have someone taking notes, helping to gather the feedback on the different topics. And for those of us in the room here, we're going to have a moderated conversation. We're going to stay here, and we're going to stay here. So if everybody's comfortable with that, we're going to have here just have a conversation around the different topics that are a part of Rowen and get your feedback and be able to document that. So I think we'll go on from there into the breakout. So thank you so much. Thanks. So are we Yeah, we got it. You won't go ahead.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So we're just going to stay here in this room because there aren't very many of us, and we're going to go through each of these categories, and if any of you have anything to say, just raise your hand. I'll come over with the mic. So our first category is authenticity, if anyone wants to start.
Is there more than one mic? That's the question. Here,
Yeah, so...
all right, you handle this, and I'm going to talk really loud. Can you all hear me okay? Okay. Oh, you got another mic? Okay.
I can tell you exactly what I mean. I have questions. So when we say authenticity, we're thinking here, for Rowen especially, about respecting the existing history of the area, of the land. We're thinking about the environment. How do we stay true to what Georgia is? And we're thinking about the assets and also our neighbors, our communities. How do we stay authentic to Gwinnett and Decula and Lawrenceville? So we'll start with just an open question. And I think actually you're better at facilitating. So if you want to.
Bob got that. So I want to have one of my colleagues up here that's been instrumental in getting Rowen together, helping with the visioning. Bob Hughes, let you introduce yourself to the group.
I'm Bob Hughes. I'm actually a founding principal of a firm called HGOR. We're planners and landscape architects, and we've had the fortune of working with the county and now the Rowen Foundation for 5 years now, helping to pull this off. And I said on a call earlier, I've been involved 5 years. I'm old, I may make it another 5 years. But so I will touch this thing for 10 years, and it's kind of amazing. Really what we're trying to do is birth it and get other people to take it and raise it. But all the values that you want to instill in the place start now. There's an adage that says if you want to shoot for the moon and you're only a quarter of a degree off when you leave, you'll miss by 250,000 miles. So this time right now to really make sure that we're thinking about it, we're looking at best practices, we're talking about things, words, like strange words, like what's authentic? When you go somewhere, who's been somewhere on a vacation, or you went somewhere and said, this place was so authentic, I remembered it because it was like this. Those are the kind of things. Too often we go from real estate development to real estate development to real estate development, and they're all a genre, and they're all a thing, and 10 years later they all are the same. So what we're trying to find out from everybody, what does that mean to you when it's authentic? And I will be a school teacher and point my finger at people. So here we go.
I'm gonna be the mic runner.
I like that. He's running and I get to sit down. That's perfect, Mason.
I work at Georgia Gwinnett College, and I'm chair of the Environmental Science degree program, and I've talked to a lot of the other faculty and students about this place, and I get a lot of comments about authenticity. Well, it's not that word, we don't use that word, but a lot of comments about commitment to sustainability. These are environmental scientists, so that's something that they're concerned about. So
Sure.
I guess that would be something I would be interested in hearing about, your commitment.
And I'll just jump in real quick. That's extremely important to us, and I think more than just having it even in words, what does sustainability mean, but how do we put that into our development plans, into our long-term design guidelines, and have goals and metrics where we can hold ourselves accountable and reach out to the right people that are at the forefront in thinking about what sustainability means for development and Bobby, you got thoughts?
And I might try and sort of paraphrase that a little bit to say, I'll bet any place that you've been that's authentic has something about that natural world and where it sits that comes through it, that it's in a harmony with that to create that sense of authenticity. So from a sustainability standpoint, we've already taken and looked at an analysis of all the soils, of topography, rock, vegetation, hydrology, and we create a vulnerability map for each one. So if you had, a lot of times here, if you've been out in the woods, you'll find that very steep slopes have big old hardwood trees on it because it was too difficult to timber that. So now that becomes a high value environmental component. So in our overlay analysis, we will take, if you have a flat area that's a field, that becomes a light color, and a darker color and the more environmentally sensitive. So you take all of those components, topography, hydrology, vegetation, soils, and you overlay it one on top of the other, and the darkest areas you come up with are the most environmentally sensitive, and the lightest areas are the least. And right off the bat, we begin to know where we should build and where we shouldn't, which is step number one in it. Then we begin to think about what are all the things that we can do, because we will break eggs to make an omelet. There's no way not to in this. But how can we do it in a way that's healing? How can we do it in a way that's thinking about my 4 grandchildren, not me? And those become part of, again, the authentic things that we're trying to create. So we believe that the companies that we want to attract here are companies who are setting high environmental and sustainability standards within their corporate structures. So we're examining making Rowen one of 2 things, and we're exploring it now. Net neutral to begin with, or net neutral ready, which is an energy plug in. So, and out of it. So that's the kind of way that we're taking the reality of a stewardship as a cornerstone of a community and beginning to think about it here in Georgia. What does that mean authentically from an environmental standpoint?
I can tell that you're passionate about that topic.
Just a little
So
bit.
I'm going to take it to a different view. You know, Gwinnett is very diverse. So the thought here is that Rowen should also be diverse in many ways. So, but I'm going to focus on the cultural diversity. So maybe just speak to your vision around the cultural diversity. You know, we have different races and things of that nature.
Yeah, I'm going to go back and use sustainability for a second to even talk about that. In nature, the greatest diversity occurs at the edge of 2 different ecosystems. And that's where the most evolution occurs. So if we take that and think about it from a cultural standpoint, and all the cultural backgrounds and the perspectives that each of us bring to a problem, and we put us together in a room, we're going to solve that problem better. There's no doubt about that. We're going to solve it for more people. We're going to solve it faster. And that diversity is key. You want to cut out part of your community and say, we don't really think you think very well, right? A mistake, a terrible mistake.
So it's a great point. I think to start, we want to think programmatically. How do we create an environment where people from all cultures are able to come together, share ideas, companies that are coming from other parts of the world, and give them a safe place to land. I love Bob. You can't tell he's a landscape architect. I don't know. He knows the environment. But absolutely, the diversity of Gwinnett and of Georgia, socially, racially, all a priority, and how we want to integrate that into everything that we do. I mean, truly.
I can project. That's
Okay.
Liz Patterson, 3 Points Planning. So just on the sustainability question, thank you. I'm vaccinated. Just on the sustainability question, we always focus so much on environment, but there's an equity and an economic development component too. And so maybe to speak to that, there's certainly with the built environment and all of those, you could talk about green buildings, but what is Rowen doing to look at equity in terms of not just access, but jobs, economic development? You mentioned the kinds of businesses that you'll be trying to attract are places that are sensitive and appreciate what you're trying to do with Rowen. I think it'd be just nice to hear about those other 2 elements. Thanks.
Yeah, Mason, you want to start with that one? I think.
I do. I'm a little caught on your question. I'm gonna rewind just a little bit, and then we're gonna go there, because the conversation here, I want to make sure that I want to hear your thoughts. Right? It's helpful to have kind of a Q&A, back and forth dialogue. I like that, and I'm happy for us to answer questions and going along. But I'd say most important is that to confess that we don't have all the answers. Big surprise.
And we don't want to have all the answers.
Right. And so you asked a really important question. What does cultural diversity, what does social diversity mean for Rowen? That's an important question, okay? And I don't want to just acknowledge it with, that's important to Rowen, and then move on. I want to hear, for you and from others, what should that mean from a proactive way of how we do business, how we talk, how we engage in an equitable way? How do we engage multicultural, international environment that is Gwinnett? What are your thoughts on how we can do that well? Okay, and others. I mean, jump in, because I want to. This helps build us up and helps fill those gaps of how we can be thoughtful and intentional.
I just wanted to say too, for some of you who came in late, I'm one of the Gwinnett County Commissioners. Your question is definitely valid, and I was going to make sure we didn't leave it, because as a commissioner, we're holding Rowen. We're working with Rowen, but we also holding them accountable for things like that. When we talk about contractors, when we talk about what's going to be built, we're thinking about diversity, not just in ethnicity, but in age and whatever that we're doing. So we're making sure through our partnership with Rowen that cultural aspects will be taken care of at every level. We're asking questions and we're saying, what are you going to do? And so we are working to make sure that that's not forgotten or it's not overlooked. But because it's new and it's one of the things that we're working on, it's not written yet. So that's why tonight, having input from each one of you who's in this room will make a big difference. So please speak up.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
want
Yes. Say that one more time.
If you scan the back of your card, there's a little QR code, and there's a form online that if you have anything you want to share, it goes directly to Rowen's inbox, and you can share it beyond this meeting too. So if we don't get to you, or if you have an idea tomorrow, a week from now, yes, go to rowenlife.com. You'll find it there too. We want to hear from you beyond tonight.
Hey, Mason,
thanks,
we
Carly.
have some friends over here who have some thoughts on that.
Great. All right, cool. I'll be right back. Oh, you got it. Okay.
My name is Ricardo Sewell. I work with Sovereign Estate, and me and Harari work in real estate, mostly in Midtown Atlanta. We're coming up to this area. I'm a native Atlantan, native Georgian. I'm actually from Rockmart, Georgia, so I'm from the sticks, as people say. So I appreciate places like this. I live in Atlanta right now, and my question is, it hits authenticity and culture. When I was in college, I helped to work on the Beltline project with Paul. So for me, this is like, oh, a thing's happening again. So my question to you guys is, this is a really great opportunity for something different. And what I've seen with a lot of things I've been at that are like this, they kind of do the carbon copy thing, and the neighborhoods all feel kind of the same. So what are you thinking about? How is this going to be different from like the Beltline or from West Side Quarry or something like that? How is it going to feel like Gwinnett, like, in my opinion, the country, which is a good thing, and keeping the nature and the aspect of it, which I like. And just to share a quick story, this weekend I drove an hour and a half to go to Dahlonega to go to a cabin because there wasn't one in Midtown to go to. So I think this is a great opportunity.
So, thank you. I think it is important, and you bring up a great point, that we're not carbon copying anybody, right? You might learn what some fundamental relationships were, but we're not going down and taking a picture and saying, okay, we're going to build this here. So, there again, to that point, just not copying, I think is there. And I think the Beltline did a great job by making itself what it is, and it became authentic. But it also changes as it goes through different parts of the city. Its character changes, even though it's the same ribbon as it goes through that. And I think, that's a key part of its authenticity as well as we do that.
And I think part of that's going to be discovered too, right? I mean, we have a lot of property. We've got the river. How do we test out different ideas around what's going on in Gwinnett, what's going on in Georgia, the cultural resources that exist on the site, all need to be understood to really inform how it is authentic, right? What are the unique features on the property? What are the unique cultural relationships that we can help identify and highlight as a part of the development and the programming that goes on? Other feedback, thoughts? We can jump around.
Yeah, my name's Jay Bassett. I've been a long time member of Gwinnett. I serve on the board of Gwinnett Clean and Beautiful, and just so you know, I'm a long time retired military, been with US EPA for many years, and what I've been really focused on is equitable and sustainable development, working with communities for community voices into how we transform properties that bring wealth and value back into the community, that keeps the community heritage as part of the redevelopment, right? So how do you get that community voice into the redevelopment process within market prospectuses and performas so that it matches up? And so I'd be curious, as you're thinking about that, how you guys are thinking about really how to get that community voice into the projects, the redevelopment, into the performas in a really meaningful way.
I'm going to make a suggestion because we got a lot of questions. I want us to grab comments and ideas like that, things that we need to think about, and we can kind of touch on them as we go along, but want to give everybody a chance to jump in, offer their thoughts, questions, and recognizing that, again, this is not a check-the-box event. You have my word. We are going to be getting together. There's online, and Rowen is long-term. So this is all going to be really, really helpful, and we'll be able to document it. But I want to make sure we get everybody's. Go ahead.
Yeah, Bob, I really appreciate your passion about the environment and not just going in there and bulldozing everything and then replant the trees that you just took out. So that really means a lot, to really respecting the natural layout of the land and encompassing that into the development. I kind of missed a little bit of your beginning, so I did want to clarify. I know you mentioned Research Triangle in Boston and that sort of thing. Those places have very specific identities. And so was the idea to kind of understand what to bring to Rowen, or was it was that where we're kind of going, what industries to kind of focus on, or is a mixture of industries?
So it's a great question. Looking at those other benchmark global best practices, in part was about the culture and the community that they were able to develop, that were authentic to their place. Research Triangle Park is 7,000 acres, right? It's been around almost 70 years. Kendall Square, much more urban downtown in Massachusetts. So in looking at those, what inspired me is that there are models out there that, when done in an authentic way and responsive to the economic opportunity, the community expectations and partnerships, we can learn from that to help inform an authentic brand around Rowen for Gwinnett, and do our own research around what industry makes sense. You know, we want to, that's where we landed on medicine, agriculture, and the environment, because those are tremendous strengths in Georgia and for our universities and colleges. So how do we create those connections and position ourselves in the market, which I think was a question over here, to be competitive, to be a unique destination? Is that helpful? Okay.
So as you mentioned, the university and the medical community, are these industries now part of the conversation? How are we incorporating them on part of the conversation, or because we haven't specifically identified?
Right. I think for Rowen, it's the start of that conversation, right? How do we bring them in and make those connections between different institutions? But that's a great question. Yes, sir. I know you've been waiting. I'm gonna come
I had one daughter who went to North Carolina, one went to North Carolina State, so I'm very familiar with Research Triangle Park. And when I saw this announcement come out in August, I'm like, I'm all in. But here's what people don't understand. It's happening anyway. Delta Airlines has got a research lab at Georgia Tech where we're developing all kinds of infrastructure for airplanes. Now they've got Delta flight products. That was an incubator at a college at Georgia Tech. This project's going to track those kind of relationships because it does in all the other parts. But what's going to be nice about it, it's going to be Georgia Pines. You know, when you look at Research Triangle Park, it's mountainous, it's a lot more city and colleges. But what it brings in diversity is the whole college atmosphere and graduates and people in mentorships. I mean, this could, when we talk about I'm in real estate as well as a lot of people who are here tonight, but this is a generational project. This is so exciting to me because the young people in the STEM schools around here, that's the pipeline for some of the research parks, right? But what I liked about what you said is economic, right? Economical fairness. Because one of the things I see in Atlanta, and I grew up in the military all over the world, right? So when you come, we were all Americans, but when you come here, you think economic sustainability and fairness, how do you get that? Here in Atlanta, I think we got a lot more economic divide sometimes than we do racial divide. I think we get along pretty good here in Atlanta, and we find more and more haves and have-nots, and we want to make sure that everybody has a fair shake at going to Rowen and having a future. That's what's so exciting about this to me.
That's good. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Good evening, my wife and I, Arlene, I'm James Klingscales. We recently actually invested in this area. We bought some property off of Harbins Road, right there in Decula. Had a 150-year-old house that had been dilapidated, vacant for years, and we actually went looking for another property and just kind of ran across it. And so we spent the last 2 years actually renovating it, setting it up for what we're calling like a life space. The name of our company is Circuit Spaces. But we wanted that building, that place, to be a place where, you know, the community can come in, you know, church, business, social. And I see Rowen as almost, well, our project is like a microcosm of what you're dealing with at Rowen. You're trying to bring everyone together. So I think it's very key that we include the children, we include the teenagers, we include, the churches, the religious community, the social community, the business community, the schools, into this large development. 2,200 acres. I mean, that's a huge development. And I think the area is kind of ripe for what we can bring into it. Obviously, we're kind of focused on sustainability and authenticity, but you can look here. It's almost like a blank slate. It's almost like a blank slate. So I think we have a great opportunity to create something definitely for the future, no doubt. All right.
That's great. That's good words right there. Thank you so much. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So I'm a local architect in town, most of architects, and I used to work in Gwinnett County for many years. So I've been living in Gwinnett. My kids are here. Most of the times, most people come because of the parks, because of the schools. And then later on, you get some of your friends, and then they leave. They say, oh, well, we're going to go to the city. After we reach a certain age, we're going to go back to the city and live a different life. But right now, what I've noticed, and we have a lot of people in our office that are from the local community schools that graduated from, Buford or graduated from Gwinnett Tech or coming, and they want this living. They want more, but they like to have studios that they can work and feel that, they're working like in Atlanta, but not really in Atlanta, and then they still could go home to their couple of acreage or whatever it may be. So I think one thing is to just be able to figure out how you could still keep this next generation, especially like my son's in robotics, or he does different things. I think he just did a ham radio or something the other day. And all of that's to say that I would love for him to think he can stay in his community that he grew up in, instead of saying he's gonna, like he's thinking, I'm gonna go to Georgia Tech. So then if he goes to Georgia Tech, will he stay? Or is he gonna go to New York, like I transplanted from New York. So it's just to figure out how could we keep that, like this microcosm, like this group to stay, because they can grow more. And also the fact of entrepreneurship, because when you think about the high schools like South Gwinnett, and they're training some of these students to, learn how to, I guess, learn about cleaning hospitals or what have you, just to keep grooming that they can actually have a place that it can, because for me working in Gwinnett, I think that was the hardest part, is to watch that there's a lot of people that had great ideas to start businesses, but they just didn't have, maybe a lot of architects that could give them the concepts or just to follow process. So that was one thing that I just felt that it was hurtful in those years, to make sure we can just create strong businesses that are sustainable, not just, somebody just starts something and not be able to keep going. So that's it. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you so much. Other comments, especially, yeah.
I want to kind of build off what you said, but taking a different angle. So I'm in corporate America, and quite frankly, we live in Gwinnett County. My office is in Midtown. So vision for Rowen, it would be great. Aside from small entrepreneurs and all of that, we would love to have attract large corporations to be a part of the Rowen family, right? I work for Fortune 500, I work for GE, those companies that want to be a part of this, for those individuals who are working for large corporations, not just entrepreneurs. We've got to get them be a part of this.
Yeah, and in fact, I was just saying I want to come back to the question, because we sort of
we
changed
did.
things without really answering that or giving you a chance to finish the comment. But I think your comments, and your comments are actually all connected together. They're really talking about how do we attract a GE, and how do I keep my son here, and how do we make it accessible and affordable to someone who has an idea but doesn't have all that money to go develop that idea. Those become all intertwined with each other, and is really a serious part of what we're trying to achieve.
I'm Dr. Corey Acuff. I'm the Associate Director of the Innovation Gateway at UGA. We're responsible for commercializing technologies coming out of the research labs at the university, doing startups, doing economic development work.
Y'all wave to the president. Goodbye, President. Hey, Mr. President. All right. Sorry, go ahead.
So I was really interested to see on one of the slides that incorporating research in interacting with the universities. I haven't heard anything about Rowen on our campus to this point yet. So interested. We do this. We're very well recognized for our success in creating jobs, creating companies, getting technology out of the research labs and into the corporate America. And, this might be a great opportunity for us. We can leverage what we're doing into Gwinnett and out of Clark County. But, there's a critical mass issue. You've got to have talent. You've got to figure out how to bring talent in for opportunities like this. And it takes money to start companies, to invest in companies and get them off the ground. And, talent acquisition, bringing in experienced entrepreneurs to help train and lead some of the early stage projects or companies, and finding the investors to invest in those are things that have to be considered, at least if you're interested in the entrepreneurial type of environment. You got to have the money. So that's something that Rowen has to think about very early on. How are you going to bring that in, or incorporating that type of focus in your activities, your business development activities?
So I'm hearing there the full economic system to support companies, venture, investment, support, kind of different services, but also, and I learned this when I was at Research Triangle Park before moving to Georgia, complementing the work that UGA has going on, that GGC has going on? How can we create partnerships that help amplify your important work, create a platform and opportunity to create connections that bring value, that attract talent, that attract investment? I think all those are really, that's great. Bob.
Hi, hello. Oh, I'm sorry. So my name is Harari Hamilton. I'm with Sovereign Estate as well. And closer? Oh, sorry. I apologize. So in hearing all these great ideas, I've always wanted to have more corporations out here and to grow this area, but I am concerned about the traffic. And then I want to know if that has already been considered to create an infrastructure so that way there's a flow, because even now, even coming here, was so much, it's changed from COVID, from pre-COVID to now. It seems like there's not enough roads. There's so much new development. You may not know, or if you do know, it's a really crazy market right now. Things are just flying off of the shelf. So after everything levels back out, a lot of the concerns I'm getting from my clients, and then even me just living here in Gwinnett, is how can I get to these amazing places? And then if we bring in this huge corporation or Apple or whatever, and then all of their employees and create all these jobs, which is great, but like, where are they going to park? And then how's that flow going to go?
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent comment. It comes up, and I mean, being able to plan and anticipate and be proactive around the movement of workers, the community in an efficient way, making the site accessible. It's a big reason why. I mean, one of the first things that we've done is a DRI that's underway for the project, so that we can understand from a numbers perspective way in advance, before there's a building, before there's a master plan. We can proactively think about that and understand that and integrate it into our strategy that is, has single occupancy vehicles, but it also has other solutions. How do we create a lot of options for us to remain in front of that and be proactive in that way? So I think that's a great point.
Yeah, so the point of staying ahead of any of our infrastructure needs, so that we're doing that. But I've done this for 42 years. I get weird feedback. I've done this for 42 years in this region, and we've all talked about we never get land use planning and transportation planning coordinated, right? When you have 2,000 acres and 50-year window of horizon, if we don't get it right, we all should be lined up and shot, right? So starting that DRI gives us that data to begin to make those decisions way in advance of when we need it. And that's what, the only way to get out ahead of it is to recognize it's coming, predict when it's coming, and then hope you're right and bring the infrastructure there. Too often, our heads have been in the sand. We haven't done that. Then we get the problem. Then they're even more expensive to fix.
And a DRI, just for everybody loves acronyms, developments of regional impact. So it helps understand those numbers. That may be a better question. I mean, right. I mean, it certainly is a part of our thoughts around regional connectivity, accessibility, and diversity of ways of getting people in and out of the county, specifically related to Rowen. I mean, Rowen is our property, and that's an asset in the community. Right. I think it's something important for us to note and say, well, what does that mean for Rowen? How do we need to think and work with the county proactively to consider what role that plays? Yeah, no, exactly. Okay, in 6 seconds, are our friends on Zoom joining us again, Emily? They're exiting separate. Okay, I didn't know if we were all reconvening again with all of our friends on Zoom. Okay, let's keep going. All right.
Oh, I just wanted to ask if you've ever looked at the Gwinnett Environmental and Heritage Center. I mean, that's when you go to that place, you feel like it's authentic to the place. You feel it's very low impact building. You've got the parks and the trails all around. You've got the zip line out in the woods. I mean, you just feel very comfortable when you go in there.
Yes, we have looked at it, and we've been there, and I've actually done a couple of retreats with former commissioners there to talk about this over the last 5 years. And then we've also been involved working with the county on the water tower project that has been constructed next door there. So that is a great example of sort of I'm gonna call it a transitional style of architecture. It's not totally traditional and it's not totally modern, but it has uses indigenous materials. It fits into the terrain well. So that really does begin to set a tone of something that if you went to Birmingham or if you went to Charlotte, you're not going to see gray Stone Mountain granite, right? It's a different product. So some things like that really can help. So that's a great example for us to always remember and go back to. Okay.
This could be a question. I'm not sure if it's a comment, but I don't know who said it. Whoever worked at GE, to the corporation, kind of bringing corporations in. I'm a consultant as well when I can't talk about who I work with sometimes. One of the companies is CBIZ Corporation. They have a couple of offices around here. And two tech companies. They're doing a lot of investment, and you'll love this, in the environmental sector. One starts with an apple. I don't know. I can't, whatever. You know who it is. Fruit company.
Fruit company.
And my question really is, at the organization, is there a lead person reaching out to these big corporations? Because literally they have money sitting, and they're like, where do we build buildings? And if you watch, the AJC or something like that, Microsoft just scooped up half of the West Side.
Right.
They built another on 16th Street. Apple just invested $120 billion in the AUC. I know where the building is going because I'm on that project. So it's like the money is there, just putting on your radar, making sure that somebody's pinging these companies because the money is available. And to her point, making sure that if we get ahead of it, we can prevent the traffic by planning it correctly.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great comment, to be looking out for those resources and partners that can help us in this. Schedule-wise, just to sort of look at where we're reaching out and how we're sort of, we're at this process now of gaining this information. The county just voted to do the Eastern Regional Sewer Project, which Rowen sits inside of. It's not just sewer in Rowen. Rowen's about, 5% of the area that's being sewered, something like that. And so that project will deliver sewer to that region in about 2 years. So we have 2 years to plan and build some road access, street access in to align with that. So somebody taught me years ago, until you can get in the people to property and the waste away from it, you just have land. You don't have real estate. So that's the kind of timing which gives us time to be thoughtful, gives us time to gather this information when we can go, yeah, we ought to be reaching out to people like that as well, and along this way, and seeing how it is. It does take a village to do this. It takes these ideas, these notes, and these partnerships.
And I think that's where, as a nonprofit foundation, where we're able to, we want to create this ongoing conversation so that you and I can connect over coffee or whatever, and you hear about a relationship that nobody else in the Rowen network has, but there's an opportunity to be able to attract them to Georgia, to Rowen.
Yeah, one of the things, as we talk about authenticity and all that, the water tower comes up a number of times, and maybe people don't know that the resource and treasure that's here in Gwinnett. The Wayne Hill treatment plant is probably the most sophisticated treatment plant east of the Mississippi. They do resource recovery, and as we look in water utilities and innovations right now, what everyone is talking about is resource recovery through water utilities and infrastructure through water utilities. And the Wayne Hill treatment plant is already doing it and is positioned to do it. And to me, that, if you want to look at economic 21st century jobs around environmental performance for public utilities, they're set to go. And we ought to, really look at how to take advantage of that and wrap that up as part of an innovation platform.
That is a great comment, and in about half a dozen different ways. Again, it's this sort of notion that in innovation, the more innovation you have going on in an area, the more innovation you get. It's not like real estate where it's competitive. It feeds off of each other. When we got involved in the water tower project, I got to go do a tour of the Wayne Hill plant, and I was blown away. This thing's huge, and there's like 25 people working there. It's all mechanized. What they extract out of the process and reuse and resell is unbelievable. So it's an amazing asset for the county.
2 points of information regarding students and their interaction and their being collaborated. I think that it would be advantageous for Rowen to consider an internship program where we identify specific feeder locations that are student-based to help develop, because as you said, these students will actually be raising the baby that we birth here. And so that would be one component that I would encourage. Secondly, many of the Gwinnett County schools are academy-based. And so there are committees that are specifically focused on looking at 10-year goals and determining the content of the academies in the public schools based on what the goals are. I think it would be also productive to have a collaboration there so that the corporations that you involve and the 10-year focus that the schools are determining the content for the academies are in sync. Yeah. So I think that would be two areas I would suggest.
That's a great idea.
Thank you for that.
Thanks.
Other comments?
We probably about spring of next year under construction with the roads to tie up to the sewer delivering in. The roads will not be all over all the property. There'll be just a phase one component of roads that go in. One of the things when you are developing land that if you go build a road right through the middle of your property, the only thing you know is it's in the wrong place. You just cut down all the flexibility you do. So you want to try and do two things. Manage your expenditures, right, to your resources. So we want to spend just the right amount on the roads. And we want to put them in the places that we think we're confident that they're going in the right place. Because when we start talking to users on something like this, they're going to come in with specific needs, to accommodate X amount of square footage. We have to have the absolute most flexibility around our values, right? We're not going to violate those, but we have to have business flexibility around our integrity to do that.
Great. Next question.
This is actually for our commissioner. We talked about the fact that we do expect to see quite an increase in traffic. Any thoughts around public transportation, expansion of MARTA up in that area so that we can address that?
That's an easy question.
We are actually getting ready to start looking at that again. One thing that happens in Gwinnett in 2022, we have SPLOST that's coming up, which is a renewal of a tax that we currently have. So we don't want to do anything in 2022. But by 2024 is something that we would love to have another type of plan, not necessarily MARTA, but another transit plan, because we have to look and see now that we have Rowen and we have other businesses coming back, we're coming north of where we were instead of going south towards Atlanta. We want to just take a big look at that, and as well as thinking when we saw the slide that had Gainesville on it, there's a freight depot that's being made too. So we have to look at traffic differently. So yes, we will consider everything there, but now we want to turn around and look and say what's going to happen to the Gwinnett Place Mall, which we purchased, what's going to happen to the Mall of Georgia. And so we're looking at a lot of different transit methods now, and we are thinking about even starting some routes now based on the funding that we have, and then we are counting on hopefully federal funding with hopefully some of the new infrastructure money that will come in if everything passes. So we are beginning to look differently and look at that area, as well as, and I heard your question before about transit too. So we are working and thinking, what can we do? We're not gonna wait to the last moment. It's just that it's so big and it's so broad, and even with the airport question, we're looking at that too. So it's not forgotten, it's something that we have to pull together and look at, but things are changing and they're kind of moving rapidly, so it makes us put our brakes on hold for just a second and say, well, maybe we don't need to go there right now. Let's turn around and go this way and see what we can do, because we want to make sure that once jobs come, that we're able to support the transit on the road. Yes. Right, but we need even more as we continue to grow, because that's not going to help us 10 or 15 years from now.
I can say this, there is hardly a conversation we're in that the word transit doesn't come up.
So my name is Tracy Phillips. I'm a 31-year resident of Gwinnett County. My wife and I relocated at the end of 2019. After I finished my corporate career, we chose to stay in the county, but we went as far east as we could without leaving. We're in Bethlehem, that little sliver of Bethlehem that's in Gwinnett. So this is going to be in my backyard. We live less than 2 miles from what's going to be the southeast corner of the project, it looks like. And I just have a comment. I hope as you think about the types of organizations and entities you want to attract to this project, you take the risk of bringing in 1,000 organizations with 18 employees each, or 100 organizations with 180 employees each, and not 10 organizations with 1,800 employees each. We do not need to recreate, in my opinion, an employment center that is heavily weighted towards larger corporations, or excuse me, larger footprints of any entity. There can be a GE here, but let's have a GE with 180 or 500 people, not with 5,000 people. That's one thing. My perception, and the world's gotten crazy this past year, and in this room there's a lot of diversity of thought about values we hold personally and values we hold politically, how we vote, things like that. I don't want to see someone come out here, like in a strip shopping center, you always have an anchor tenant. I don't want to see somebody whose thumb gets laid down on this thing and they control the whole thing. 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 entities. I want to see dozens of entities, because there's going to be, from a long-term perspective, more opportunity, more diversity. For this to be a living, breathing organization, things will come into it and things will leave it. There'll be a natural life cycle that occurs. And when you plant the larger entities inside of this, or again, entities that have a larger footprint, I think you're going to risk having the natural evolution that should occur over time in something like this.
That's good. That's good. I mean, it's evolved over time. Again, Research Triangle Park is nearly 70 years old, and there are 6 different tech and life science incubators in RTP, and there are large R&D headquarters for IBM, Biogen. So it really is, I mean, to the point, now there are large employers in Research Triangle Park, but I think one key is that there is a diversity to how these places are curated, I'll say, not just monetized, but curated. So you're building a community that focuses on diversity in workforce, in the different type of talent pipeline that is created, so that it isn't dependent on one single company there that leads everything. So I'm gonna get a comment over here. I don't know what happened to the other mic.
It's over here.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah,
okay.
I have
There
it.
you go. I found it.
I just had a feedback, opinionated thing I wanted to add. It would be great, in my opinion, to connect the Chamblee Peachtree Airport, the private airport, to Gwinnett Place Mall, to Mall of Georgia, to Discovery Mills, and that way it wouldn't kill these other 2 locations like what happened to Gwinnett Place Mall. It would be, so they can be different projects, but it would be nice to have some kind of connections. I feel like whenever we develop an area, we cut off our arm, and then that dies, and it's like, oh, what happened to that crazy, scary thing over there? But this is the new stuff, so let's focus on that. I'm like, well, if we could contain it all or connect it all, I think that would be a good way to keep everything going. So that's just my opinion. Yeah.
To the larger community and region.
Right. So,
Okay.
just quickly, was it Tracy? Yeah, I love your comment for a couple of reasons. I think we start living into this pre and post COVID era where business model have shifted. There's a lot of people who couldn't work remote before, and now all of a sudden your company figure out, hey, wait a minute. This remote environment is what it is just as effective, even more effective, because now I'm working 80 hours as opposed to 40, right? So what corporations are evolving through this time period, and that would need to be considered. As Tracy said, now we're not looking for 1,000 space employer now, maybe that 1,000 now has reduced to 50 because those are the only ones that need to be in office, right? So I think that's a great point now that we have to assess not only the businesses are coming in, but how has their needs changed and shifted so that Rowan is able to evolve with these new needs and meet them where they're at.
I just had a question about Tracy's comment as well. What prevents the 10 dominating companies from coming in and having a monopoly on that particular area? Is there what prevents that from happening?
I mean, I would say rather than having I'm not sure exactly, that's more of a county question, but I'd also say that's something that we should have as a part of our internal due diligence within Rowan of saying, having this as a question and managing that type of an opportunity, what mechanisms need to be put in place, right? What expectations, processes, conversations we need to institutionalize so that as we move Rowan forward, those types of topics are brought up.
And I think you said it well a minute ago, Mason, when you talked about curating the park. Remember, Rowen Foundation is a mission-driven institution. It isn't a cash flow-driven institution. It's got responsibilities that it has to live up to from a business perspective. But if it's doing something that is contrary to the mission, then it's got a board that's going to call it on that. And I think that's part of that. What does it? That's one of the reasons of best practice is to create this kind of nonprofit with this long-term mission in it, and then populate it with a board and a sense of discipline and a sense of integrity that makes that happen. But and it goes back to the comments that you had when I kind of pushed you on that a little bit, and what you shared with us was so spot on. And the way you do that is you do what Mason said. You're conscious of it, you're aware of it, and it is part of the strategy of the place you're building from day one.
Yes, sir.
A couple of points here, and we may have missed it. We got here a little late. I saw somewhere where 60 years out, the numbers, the huge numbers. We're CPA, so we like numbers. But do you have the visual behind the numbers? Meaning, wow, I can put the 60 billion, I can put the 100,000 people, but looking at the 2,200 acres, what does that represent visually, behind those numbers? Somewhere, someone has that vision there, 40 years out, 60 years out. Yeah.
And I'll say, right now we don't have that. That's what the capacity on the site and looking at projections for growth. But part of thinking about how is the site developed? Are there hubs of amenities and activation and programming? Is it something that's developed, driven by transit and having a multimodal station that's a part of it? So there is no master plan. That one diagram that was kind of a rough land use of showing different densities, that's as detailed as we have right now, truthfully. So it's all just understanding with 2,000 acres what that could be. Yep.
Yeah, another way to look at it is,
we're a little over time. We are in a church, so I think we got to start passing the plate at 8 o'clock.
Right.
And get some money going for a longer rental. But
so real quick, if you think about it this way, if you took 2,200 acres and you built it out at 10,000 square feet to the acre, which is not dense at all, and from a real estate standpoint, you get 22 million square feet of stuff. We did that, and then we backed our way into some assumptions about how much retail that might be, how much lab space that might be, how much that, and that's then began to base those assumptions on it. But it isn't coming in and saying, we're maxing the land out to the nth degree. It's coming in and saying, we're going to preserve enough land. If you built it out at the gross density of 10,000 square feet an acre, and then you preserved half the land, you got 20,000 square feet on what you're building on. It's still not that dense. So that's how the thinking behind it goes.
Back to the math.
Very quick point on this. Now, because of people working from home and Zooms and so forth, people are very visual now. And I think to generate additional excitement from the county perspective, it'd be great to see some of the visual stuff. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, and the website has some imagery that conceptually kind of conveys the type of community we want to create as a part of Rowan. But it is, it's the idea. It's trying to capture the story. But to your point, I think as we move forward, into the, we want to, it's important to me to have these conversations first before, as I said, have an image say, and this is what it's going to be like. I hope you like it. I want it to be this type of conversation so we can get to that point where we have imagery.
So Mason, I have to say one thing. I cannot believe that my friend Herman Howard has sat here all night without a comment.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you. My name is Herman Howard. I guess I should stand. And we have a firm, architects and urban designers, but I also teach at Georgia Tech. And we're looking at kind of a large site, nothing like this, but we invited Bob Hughes to speak to the students, a graduate studio at Georgia Tech. And they talked about their work. And I'm not sure if he started or ended with this, but when he presented Rowen, it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is amazing. And what's great about this evening is that there's lots of people from different walks of life, and they see things differently. I've had the pleasure of seeing his work, being with him on the board at Piedmont Park, and the sensitivity that goes into it. We probably could have talked all night about authenticity. Just when you really dive deep into what that means, it's really pretty cool. So, because you called me out, I'll put him on blast. His work is extremely sensitive, and it's beautiful work. So, thank you. So when you're looking at 2,000 acres, it's like, whoa. And sometimes we need to understand how big it is. And some of the graphs and things are showing how big this is in comparison to other things. It's a big thing, and it takes time. And there's so many ways that landscape architects, master planners, you do it. Sometimes it's a really simple thing, and we call it constraint mapping. And that is, where can you build, where can you not build, and where can you build what? And if you can address that, you've created a whole new sense of authenticity. I don't have a lot of questions. I just wanted to come and see and hear about what's being done. There were some great things in talking about diversity. We're working on something. It's really pretty cool. Not nearly anything this size, but it's one of these large corporations that is setting up an East Coast campus. So I'm under some NDAs and all that, but it's going to be on the west side of Atlanta, so you guys can probably figure it out of what it's going to be. But their campus is going to be almost 90 acres and almost 3.5 million square feet. Again, pretty small compared to this, but they realize that it will take almost 10 years to build it out. And they're being very intentional about certain things. So the first thing is, what is going to be the community impact? What's going to be the first phase that will really bring about a quality of life for the community, looking at education, green space, and residential? And their mandates are two things, and I'll hand you back the microphone. But their mandate is two things, but he asked me to do this. So their mandate is two things, which is part of what is going on tonight, and that is not planning for the community, but planning with the community. And that's huge. That's a huge difference. And this firm also wants to look at, because they've already dedicated 25 of the 90 acres for community purposes, but they want to look at where are the opportunities to lead, to partner, and to monitor. And maybe you guys want to ask the same question. With this, where are the opportunities for impact into the community, and how will they impact their boundaries both inside and outside? And I think with some of the comments that we've heard tonight, is really pretty amazing. And I walked in just a little bit late, but I have one question, just one question. I hope you guys didn't already address it, and that is, what is the inspiration behind the name?
All right, we're going to answer that in 30 seconds, and then we're going to let the wonderful people at C3 that have let us use their facility be able to call it an evening. And I'll wrap us up, but go ahead.
So 5 years it was known as Project X. 3 days before we were going to announce it, it was known as Project X. Brian Broderick of Jackson Spalding calls me and says, I think I have a name, Rowen. It means the second cutting or harvesting of the same field in a year. The land keeps giving. And so with the stewardship, how do we do this in a way that the knowledge keeps giving, the land keeps giving? It's Rowen.
There you go.
Thank you.
So on that note, I want to thank everybody for being here this evening. This is such an important conversation. It's the start of a conversation. Y'all, you have your cards where you can scan. There's a code on the back and provide feedback. RowenLife.com. You can connect with us on there and share feedback. Please keep it coming. We'll see y'all again soon at a future event and as we bring Rowen to life together and have our second harvest. So hope y'all have a great evening. Be safe.